There is Harvard lecturer. I think she clarifies that she is not actually a professor. Carole Hooven, who joined Fox and Friends for joined. That's their language. That she would not say that. She's a liberal who spoke to Fox for a 4 or 5 minute clip to talk about the ideology that is happening in education, and specifically the medical school, specifically the Harvard Medical School. And I think they found her through Katie Herzog's recent excellent piece that was in Barry Rice's Substack. So that's a lot of names. But Dr. Hooven here talks about male and female being different, and us being able to talk about men and women being critical in a medical school and being able to say things like pregnant women. And I will link to this in the show notes, but rather than have you listen to the whole 5 minutes, I listened to it. It's not that long. And there's exactly nothing transphobic or harmful in what she says. And yet here we have someone tweeting out this video saying, a woman by the name of Laura Simone Lewis saying, as the director of the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force for my department at Harvard, HEB, that's Human Evolution and Behavior, I think, I am appalled and frustrated by the transphobic and harmful remarks made by a member of my department in this interview with Fox and Friends. To which I quote tweeted, as an evolutionary biologist, I am appalled and frustrated by the scientific illiteracy that is apparently being facilitated by our most elite institutions. I don't honestly know how we are going to continue to function if this continues. I mean, we're seeing incompetence and inability to think through basic scientific arguments over in virus and vaccine space. At least that's a little bit complicated. At least it takes walking through a few steps of logic to arrive where people should be arriving at. But the observation that everyone on the earth has made, that male and female are different, and the fact that in our lineage alone, we have at least 500 million years of uninterrupted sexual reproduction in our lineage. And sexual reproduction has been around for, anywhere from 1 to 2 billion years on the planet. And probably our uninterrupted lineage goes back that far as well. That 500 million years number that I quoted, that's me being conservative. Like, yes, intersex people exist. And yes, gender, and here you and I always have a slightly different definition for this. Gender is the behavioral manifestation of sex. In non-human animals, what we call gender in humans, we call sex role. And the way that you manifest your sex is your sex role, is your gender. Are there some humans who feel deep down that they are not the sex that they are born to? Yes. And they are transgendered, and we will treat them with respect, and we need to do so. But this has got to stop. This has got to stop. This is insanity. You're absolutely right. It is going to result in the destruction of everything, as we pointed out a long time ago. If your schools of engineering are going postmodern, then the point is you're giving an advantage to any competitor who can manage not to suffer that same fate, right? And so basically we're talking, on a global scale of those societies that can resist this nonsense are going to have, the gates of the city thrown open to them. True, but in the meantime, bridges may start falling. Right. And in the meantime, as medical schools are captured and cannot agree to really the easiest and most basic observable fact of human biology. Right. I mean, if they started saying that humans have 3 legs, I'd find that more plausible. Right. Right. Like if this is gonna be killing people, because guess what? As we go through the evidence, very, very briefly in a different part of this chapter, the number of medical conditions that manifest differently, not just in frequency, but with regard to etiology, that is what causes them, and with regard to symptoms, how they manifest by sex, is huge and growing all the time. And that's going to start disappearing. We're not going to be able to know about it. The research isn't going to be allowed. And people are going to arrive in hospitals presenting with things where if you don't even get to know as a doctor what sex is, and it's largely, frankly, probably going to affect more women than men. So just as just as the vast majority of medical research until the mid-20th century was done on men, and it was assumed that what was true for men was true for everyone, it was pretty recently that we started seeing a recognition that men and women reveal disease differently. And this improved women's healthcare. Well, this is just going to take us right back.
Well, I think it's even worse than that. In our, yeah, well, of course I would, wouldn't I?
Yes.
If you think about the game that we play politically, right, where we force you to effectively engage in a career of legal corruption before you can get to the highest echelons of leadership, right? So we force you to prove that you will make the moral compromises in order to play that game before we ever learn your name as a senator or, presidential candidate or anything like that.
Right.
In this case, it's effectively, imagine that what we did was we just said, okay, from now on, we are going to ask people a question before we let them into medical school. Do you agree that men can get pregnant? Right? And if the answer is, well, no, men can't get pregnant. Sorry, you're not qualified for medical school, right? Then you get a medical school in which everybody agrees men can get pregnant. The question is, what is the quality of what will take place at a medical school where you had that as a gate? Right? The answer is that's not going to be much of a medical school, because what you've just done is demonstrated that everybody there is a coward or a fool or some combination of those things. And if you build a medical school of cowards and fools, it's not going to be a high quality one. So at some level, you have to empower people to be able to say, look, I get it that it's really unpleasant that there are, two sexes and that we can distinguish them, immediately on birth, except in very rare cases. Right. But the fact is, come on, you cannot allow these things to take over essential functions. And essential functions means not only things like medicine and governance, but also things like the military, right? Mm-hmm. Increasingly, we are feminizing our military, which, from the point of view of us empathizing better with each other, there's an argument to be made for it. From the point of view of the ability to have a, unique gender profile, what you really need is a powerful masculine military to protect the freedom that allows you to figure out how you want to live, right? If you say, well, that freedom should exist in the military too, and why is this military regimen, so dictatorial? Shouldn't it be democratic? And, shouldn't we figure out, let's not make a military move until everybody's had a chance to speak, right? I mean, you can imagine applying these rules being well-intentioned, but my God, you're going to create a system that cannot function.
Yeah, chain of command goes right out the window.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah.